Hello everyone, welcome to Raaonline. I'm Dr. Abhinaya. I'm a consultant pediatrician. So in the Nelson series under the chapter of neurology and neuromuscular disorders, next topic will be on hydrocephalus. So we will start with definition of hydrocephalus. We will read about what are the types of hydrocephalus, what is the differential diagnosis when you come across a large head, what are the clinical features of hydrocephalus age-wise. Before the sutures fuse and after the sutures fuse, what will be the clinical features and what are the treatment modalities, both medical and surgical management. Okay. So, starting with the simple definition, it is hydrocephalus means excess CSF inside the ventricles. Okay. And previously, it was believed that it is only an imbalance between CSF production and absorption. Okay. So, CSF is produced too much and it is not absorbed. So much of CSF is getting accumulated in the ventricles. It was believed that. But now, the concept has changed a little. What we believe is, it is not just the production and absorption, but there is some disturbance in the flow of the CSF that is also contributing to hydrocephalus. Hydrocephalus has to be differentiated from abnormalities like benign intracranial hypertension where the ventricle is not at all enlarged. Okay. And one more entity of hydrocephalus ex vacuo we will see. So this hydrocephalus ex vacuo is because of the parenchymal loss. The brain parenchyma is lost. Okay. So much of parenchyma is lost here and the ventricles have enlarged. So this is hydrocephalus ex vacuo. It is not similar to the hydrocephalus that we will be talking about. Okay. So there are many different classifications of hydrocephalus. We can around 4 to 5 classifications are there. Communicating and non-communicating is what we commonly talk about, or we can talk even tell it is obstructive or non-obstructive or obstructive versus absorptive. Congenital versus acquired is one another classification. Genetic or malformation associated versus an isolated, that is you cannot identify any genetic or CNS malformation. And the last classification is either extraventricular or intraventricular. Most oftenly we will be referring to this, either communicating or non-communicating or obstructive versus non-obstructive, isn't it? So, a communicating hydrocephalus means the obstruction is somewhere outside the ventricle so that all the ventricles are connected, right? The lateral ventricles to the third ventricle to the fourth ventricle. So, all the ventricles are communicating. So, that is called communicating hydrocephalus. And the obstruction here is not inside the ventricle but it is outside. So, you can call a communicating hydrocephalus as an extraventricular hydrocephalus also. The obstruction here is at arachnoid granulation where most of the CSF is getting absorbed. That is not the only place. It is getting absorbed at the cribriform plate. It can absorb over the perivascular spaces. But the maximum absorption actually takes place at the granulations, arachnoid granulations. If there is any obstruction, that results in a communicating hydrocephalus. Whereas in the other arm, non-communicating hydrocephalus, the obstruction is intraventricular. It can be in the aqueduct, it can be in the foramina. So, intraventricular obstruction, and this is at the ventricular level. So, it is quite common that we come across hydrocephalus and it can present right from the newborns like a congenital hydrocephalus like aqueductal stenosis. So, it can present at the newborn level. So, 0.3 to 4 per 1000 live births is the incidence, and in many developed countries the incidence is decreasing because hydrocephalus can be a part of a neural tube defect. So, with advanced imaging, antenatal support, the imaging done in the antenatal and folate supplementation, all these have declined the incidence of hydrocephalus in developed countries. So, we will see 2 slides. One is about production and one is about absorption of CSF. Okay, all this you know, it is all physiology only. So, just the important points. So, the CSF production. So, CSF is produced by 2 mechanisms. One, we know it is secreted by the choroid plexus, which is the lining cells of the ventricles, right? 80% is by choroid plexus. 20% is by the extracellular fluid inside the brain parenchyma, and because of the cerebral metabolism, it is derived as a byproduct. Okay. So, understand that CSF can be produced. One is by secretion inside the ventricles, that is by choroid plexus. Another one is by the brain ECF, extracellular fluid, right? So, how much is produced? Every day 500 ml is getting produced, and every day absorption, that is production and absorption is equal. There is not much of a change, right? So, in the net time, the total CSF volume for a child will be around 65 to 140 ml. For adult, it will be up to maximum 150 ml in adults. Okay, so this is almost constant, right? So the how much ever is produced, so the absorption will also be proportional to it.